3.5 years. That is how long I gave to someone who was living a double life right under my nose. I found the messages on a random Tuesday afternoon while looking for a photo on her laptop. Hundreds of them. Explicit, detailed, ongoing for months. I did not confront her. Did not ask for explanations. I just printed the most damning ones, packed 2 suitcases, and left while she was at work. Changed my number, moved to a different state, started over from scratch. A year of silence later, my doorbell rang at 9 p.m., and there she stood, somehow having tracked me down across 400 miles. Before I tell you what happened, when I open that door, comment below where you are tuning in from. Hit like and subscribe. Because this story takes turns nobody saw coming. I met Jessica when I was 29, working as a software engineer in Denver. She was 27, a nurse at the local hospital. We matched on a dating app, met for coffee, that turned into dinner, that turned into walking around downtown until midnight. She was easy to talk to, funny, smart. She had this way of making me feel like the most interesting person in the room, even when I was just talking about debugging code. We moved in together after 8 months. Too fast, maybe, but it felt right at the time. She worked long shifts at the hospital, often came home exhausted, but always made time for us. We cooked together on her nights off. Binge-watched shows, took weekend trips to the mountains. I introduced her to my parents after a year. They loved her immediately. My mom kept asking when I was going to propose. Around the 2-year mark, things were solid. We talked about marriage, kids, eventually buying a house together. I was saving for a ring. She knew it was coming. We had looked at styles together, talked about what kind of wedding we wanted. Small, she said. Just family and close friends. Nothing too fancy. I agreed completely. But somewhere around year 3, subtle things started shifting. She picked up extra shifts at the hospital. Started coming home later sometimes, not until 1 or 2 in the morning. She said they were understaffed, that she was helping cover gaps. I believed her because I had no reason not to. She started spending more time on her phone, texting during dinner, taking calls in the other room. When I asked who she was talking to, she said co-workers, friends from nursing school, her sister. All plausible explanations. She also became more distant physically. Initiated less, seemed distracted when we were together. I chalked it up to work stress. Healthcare workers were burning out everywhere. I tried to be supportive, took on more household responsibilities, gave her space when she seemed overwhelmed. I thought I was being a good partner. Then came the nights she stayed over at her coworker's place, after particularly long shifts. Too tired to drive home, she said. Easier to just crash there and come back in the morning. It happened once, then twice. Then it became almost weekly. I trusted her. Why would I not? We had built a life together. We were planning a future. Looking back, the signs were obvious. But when you love someone, when you trust them completely, you do not see what you do not want to see. You rationalize. You explain away the inconsistencies. You tell yourself everything is fine, because the alternative is too painful to consider. The discovery happened on a Tuesday in October. Jessica had a rare day off and was at the gym. She left her laptop open on the kitchen table, logged into her email. I was looking for a photo from a trip we took to Yellowstone a few months back. She had mentioned saving them in her cloud storage, so I clicked through to find them. That is when I saw a folder labeled with just a letter. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked it, and my entire world collapsed. Screenshots of text conversations, explicit photos, videos, all involving Jessica and someone named Justin. I recognized him from her hospital. She had mentioned him before, said he was a doctor she worked with sometimes. Just a colleague, she said. The messages went back 7 months. 7 months of an affair I had no idea was happening. The texts were graphic detailed. They talked about meeting up during her overnight shifts, about hotel rooms, about how she told me she was staying at a coworker's place when she was actually with him. They joked about me, about how oblivious I was, about how easy it was to keep me in the dark. I sat there reading through months of betrayal, feeling physically sick. My hands were shaking, my vision blurred. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. This was the woman I was planning to marry. The woman I thought I knew completely, and she had been living an entirely different life behind my back. I did not wait for her to come home. I went into autopilot mode. I printed out the worst of the messages and photos, 30 pages worth, put them in a folder. Then I started packing. Clothes, laptop, important documents, a few personal items. Everything fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack. I cleaned out half of our joint savings account. Not vindictively, just what was mine. Exactly $23,000. I left the rest for her. I wrote 1 sentence on a piece of paper and left it on the kitchen table with the folder of printed evidence. I know everything. Do not contact me. Then I walked out of that apartment and never looked back. I drove straight to a long-term hotel, checked in for a week. Turned off my phone. The next day, I went to the bank and closed our joint account, opened a new one, just in mine. I called my boss and said I had a family emergency, needed to take some time off. He was understanding, told me to take whatever I needed. Then I started planning my exit from Denver entirely. For the first 3 days, I left my phone off. I did not want to hear her excuses or her apologies. I did not want to read the messages I knew would be flooding in. I just needed silence to process what had happened. On the 4th day, I turned my phone on briefly to check work emails. There were 87 missed calls from Jessica, 63 text messages, 12 voicemails. I did not read or listen to any of them. I just blocked her number and turned the phone off again. I spent the week researching cities to move to, somewhere far from Denver, somewhere I could start completely fresh. I landed on Portland, Oregon. I had visited once for a conference and liked it. More importantly, I had no connections there, no mutual friends, no ties. It was neutral territory. I applied for remote positions with tech companies based out of Portland. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 offers. I accepted one with the best salary and the most flexibility. Gave my Denver employer 2 weeks' notice, worked remotely from the hotel, then packed up my car and drove 900 miles west. Jessica tried everything to reach me. She called from different numbers. I blocked them all. She emailed. I set up a filter to send anything from her straight to trash. She showed up at my old apartment, but I was already gone. My landlord told her I had broken the lease early and moved out. She tried reaching out through social media. I deleted all my accounts. I wanted 0 traces of my old life. Her friends reached out on her behalf. Mutual people we knew as a couple. They sent messages saying Jessica was devastated that she made a mistake that she wanted to explain. I ignored all of them. Some of them persisted, saying I was being unfair by not giving her a chance to talk. I blocked them too. Anyone who thought I owed my cheating girlfriend a conversation did not deserve access to me. I settled into Portland quietly. Found a small 1-bedroom apartment in the Hawthorne district. Furnished it with basics from IKEA. Started my new job remotely. Established a routine. Morning runs work, evening walks, cooking at home. I avoided bars and social scenes for the first few months. I was not ready to meet new people or explain my past. I just wanted to exist in peace. The anger came in waves. Some days I was fine, focused on building my new life. Other days I would be blindsided by rage. How could she do that? How could she look me in the eye every day, say she loved me, plan a future with me, all while sleeping with someone else? How could she laugh about fooling me with the person she was betraying me with? The humiliation burned worse than the heartbreak. But slowly over months, the anger faded. I started feeling nothing when I thought about her. Just indifference. That is when I knew I was healing. When someone who once meant everything becomes someone you feel nothing toward, you know you have moved on. I made new friends through work. Started dating casually. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and movies. I was honest with people that I was not looking for anything heavy. Most understood. I focused on my career, got promoted within 6 months. Started hiking the trails around Portland, exploring the city, building a life I actually enjoyed. 6 months after leaving Denver, I changed my phone number. Cut off the last possible line of contact. I wanted a clean break from everything and everyone tied to that chapter. I did not tell anyone from my old life the new number. Just my parents and my brother, people who mattered. Around the 8-month mark, I met someone. Her name was Lauren. We met at a coffee shop, both reaching for the last blueberry muffin at the same time. Cheesy, but it worked. We started talking, exchanged numbers, went on a date the following weekend. She was different from Jessica in every way. More reserved, more independent, more honest. We took things slow. I told her early on that I had come out of a bad relationship and was not rushing into anything. She respected that. By the 10-month mark, Lauren and I were seeing each other regularly. Not quite official, but heading that direction. She met my friends, I met hers. We talked about taking a trip together. Life felt stable, good even. I rarely thought about Jessica anymore. When I did, it was with gratitude that I had gotten out before marrying her. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late November, almost exactly 1 year after I left Denver. I was home alone. Lauren was visiting family for Thanksgiving. I had ordered takeout, was watching a game on TV. Around 9 p.m., my doorbell rang. I was not expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. Jessica was standing on my doorstep. My heart stopped. How did she find me? I had left no trail. Changed everything. Moved states. How is this possible? I stood frozen, staring through the peephole as she rang the bell again. She looked different. Thinner. Her hair was shorter. She was wearing a jacket I did not recognize. She rang the bell a third time, then started talking. I know you are in there. I saw your car in the lot. Please. I just need 5 minutes. Please. Her voice cracked. She sounded desperate. Every instinct told me not to open that door, to call the cops if she did not leave, to maintain the boundary I had worked so hard to establish. But some part of me needed to know how she found me, needed to understand what could possibly possess someone to track down a person who clearly wanted nothing to do with them. I opened the door, but did not invite her in. We stood there, the threshold between us. She looked at me with tears already forming in her eyes. Hi, she said quietly. I did not respond, just stared at her waiting. I know you do not want to see me, she started. I know you probably hate me, but I have been looking for you for a year, and I finally found you, and I could not come. I need to talk to you. I need you to hear me out. Please. I asked the only question that mattered. How did you find me? She explained that she hired a private investigator 3 months after I left. It took the investigator 8 months to track me down. New city, new job, new phone number, no social media. But eventually they found me through my car registration. My plates were still Colorado. I had not thought to change them yet. The investigator traced the plates to this address. I felt violated, angry that she had gone to those lengths, but also curious, despite myself. I leaned against the doorframe and said, "You have 5 minutes. Talk." Jessica did not waste time. She told me everything. How the affair with Justin started at a hospital charity event. How it was just flirting at first, then coffee, then more. How she knew it was wrong but convinced herself it did not mean anything. How it spiraled into something she could not control. How she was planning to end it and tell me everything the week I found out. I asked her if she expected me to believe that. She shook her head. Said no, probably not. But it was the truth. She said finding those printed messages on the table, realizing I knew, was the worst moment of her life. Worse than when Justin ended things with her a week after I left. Worse than losing her apartment because she could not afford rent alone. Worse than anything. She told me she went to therapy, that she had been in counseling for almost a year, trying to understand why she sabotaged the best relationship she ever had, that her therapist helped her see she had issues with self-worth, with sabotaging good things, because she did not believe she deserved them, that none of that excused what she did, but it helped her understand it. She apologized, over and over, said she knew sorry meant nothing, that she destroyed my trust and any future we could have had, that she did not expect forgiveness, but that she needed me to know how deeply she regretted everything, how much she wished she could go back and make different choices. Then she said the thing I knew was coming. She asked if there was any possibility of a second chance, any universe where we could try again. She said she was different now, that therapy changed her, that she would do anything to prove she could be trusted, that she still loved me, and probably always would. I looked at her standing there, this person who once meant everything to me, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering love, just nothing. And that is when I knew my answer. I told her no, not because I hated her, not because I had not forgiven her, but because I had moved on completely. I was building a life in Portland. I was seeing someone. I was happy, and none of that included her. She had made her choices. I made mine, and mine was to walk away and never look back. She started crying harder, asked if we could at least be friends, stay in touch. I said no to that too. Told her that this conversation was closure, that after tonight I did not want to hear from her again, that she needed to let me go and move on with her own life. She asked if I ever loved her. I told her the truth. I loved who I thought she was, but that person did not exist. The real her, the one who could lie and cheat and laugh about it, that person I never knew. And I had no interest in knowing her now. I told her to go home to Denver, to focus on her therapy, to build a life for herself that did not include me. And then I closed the door. I heard her sobbing on the other side for a few minutes before she finally left. I watched through the window as she got into a rental car and drove away. I called Lauren that night, told her what happened. She asked if I was okay. I said I was, and I meant it. Seeing Jessica did not shake me the way I thought it might. It just confirmed that I had made the right choice a year ago. The next day I went to the DMV and got Oregon plates. Cut off the last thread Jessica could have used to find me. I also talked to my landlord about whether someone had asked about me. He said yes, a woman had come by a few weeks prior, asking if I lived there. He told her he could not give out tenant information. She must have staked out the parking lot until she saw my car. I felt uneasy knowing she had gone to those lengths, but I also knew it was over. She got her closure. She said what she needed to say, and I made it clear there was no path forward. If she showed up again, I would involve the police. But I did not think she would. She looked defeated when she left. Like she finally accepted it was over. That was 6 months ago. Jessica has not contacted me since. No calls, no messages, no surprise visits. I changed my car registration, tightened up my digital footprint even more, and moved on completely. Lauren and I are serious now. We moved in together 2 months ago. She knows the full story about Jessica and supports the boundaries I set. She understands why I needed to cut contact completely. I got another promotion at work. I am managing a team now, making good money, building a career I am proud of. I bought a kayak and spend weekends on the Willamette River. I joined a hiking group and have climbed most of the major peaks in the area. I have friends, hobbies, a life I built from scratch that has nothing to do with who I was in Denver. Sometimes I think about what Jessica said that night, about therapy, about understanding why she did what she did, about wanting a second chance. Part of me wonders if people really can change. If she genuinely worked on herself and became someone different. But the bigger part of me knows it does not matter. Even if she changed completely, even if she became the most trustworthy person on earth, I still would not go back. Because I am not the same person either. The me that loved her, that trusted blindly, that would have given anything to make that relationship work, that person does not exist anymore. I grew up. I learned that love is not enough if it is not built on honesty. I learned that walking away from something broken does not make you a quitter, it makes you smart. I learned that you do not owe anyone a second chance, especially when they squandered the first one so completely. I also learned that ghosting, as much as people criticize it, was the right choice for me. If I had stayed and fought, if I had demanded explanations and listened to excuses, if I had given her opportunities to manipulate me into staying, I might still be stuck in that toxic cycle. Leaving without a word gave me clean separation. It forced her to sit with her choices without being able to talk her way out of consequences, and it gave me space to heal without constantly being pulled back into her drama. Do I regret how I handled it? No. Would I do it differently? Maybe I would have sent a longer message explaining why I left. But honestly, the printed messages said everything that needed to be said. She knew what she did. She did not need me to spell it out. What I do not regret at all is refusing to see her for a year. People said I was cold for not giving her closure. But closure is not something you owe someone who betrayed you. Closure is something you create for yourself. And I created mine by building an entirely new life without her in it. Seeing her that night 6 months ago was strange, like running into a character from a book I read years ago. Familiar but distant, irrelevant to my current story. She wanted reconciliation. I gave her finality. And that was the kindest thing I could have done for both of us. I hope Jessica is doing better now. I genuinely do. I hope she continued therapy, worked through her issues, learned from her mistakes. I hope she built a life she is proud of. I just hope all of that happens far away from me, because I am done being a chapter in her story, and she is definitely done being one in mine. Lauren asked me once if I would ever trust someone completely again after what Jessica did. I told her the truth. I will never trust blindly again. I will always pay attention to patterns, to inconsistencies, to gut feelings I might have ignored before. But that does not mean I cannot trust at all. It just means I trust smarter now. I verify. I communicate. I do not ignore red flags for the sake of keeping the peace. Lauren appreciated that honesty. She said it made her want to be more transparent too. We have built something different than what I had with Jessica. Something based on actual communication and mutual respect. We check in with each other. We talk about hard things before they become crises. We do not let resentment build. It is healthier, more mature, better. I am 32 now, 3 years older than when I met Jessica. But I feel decades wiser. Betrayal ages you in ways time alone cannot. It teaches you things you wish you did not have to learn, but it also makes you stronger, more discerning, less willing to settle for less than you deserve. If I could go back and tell 29-year-old me anything, it would be this. Trust your gut. When something feels off, it probably is. Do not ignore red flags because you want things to work out. Do not stay in something broken hoping it will fix itself. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. But I would also tell him that surviving betrayal does not break you permanently. It breaks you temporarily, sure, but you rebuild, you grow, you find better. You learn that losing someone who did not value you is not actually a loss at all. It is a liberation. 3.5 years with Jessica taught me what I do not want. The 1.5 years since leaving taught me what I do deserve. Honesty, loyalty, partnership, respect, things I have now with Lauren, things I will never compromise on again. To anyone watching this who has been betrayed, who is wondering if they will ever feel normal again, I promise you will. It takes time. It takes distance. It takes commitment to building something new instead of trying to resurrect something dead. But you will get there. You will wake up one day and realize you have not thought about them in weeks. And that is when you know you won. And to anyone thinking about tracking down someone who ghosted them, asking myself this. If someone went to the lengths of completely erasing you from their life, changing cities, changing numbers, deleting all social media, what makes you think showing up will change their mind? Respect the boundary. Let them go. Work on yourself. Move forward. Chasing someone who ran from you will never end the way you hope it will. Jessica learned that the hard way. I hope she has finally accepted it. I hope she stopped looking backward and started building forward, because that is what I did, and it saved my life. So here I am, living in Portland, in love with someone who deserves my trust, building a career I am proud of, hiking mountains, kayaking rivers, laughing with friends, living a life that has nothing to do with the pain someone else caused. And that feels like the best revenge, not hurting her back, just being genuinely happy without her. Have you ever had to completely ghost someone to protect yourself? Do you think second chances are ever worth it after cheating? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story spoke to you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to walk away and never look back. Subscribe for more real stories about betrayal boundaries and building yourself back stronger. Thank you for watching. Thank you for understanding that sometimes the only way to heal is to disappear. Take care of yourselves, and remember, you do not owe anyone who hurt you a single explanation. Stay strong and keep moving forward.